There's never been a better time to have SiriusXM. With even more exclusive content, with over 150 channels in your vehicle, including the widest, deepest variety of music, ad-free. Root for your team. Get news. Listen to whatever makes you laugh. And hear all about your favorite stars. Your Platinum Plan offer includes more than ever before to enjoy online, on your phone, or at home. Create your own ad-free personalized stations powered by Pandora. Hear ad-free extra channels filled with music and enjoy favorite shows with SiriusXM Video. Thousands of hours of shows and performances on demand. What you love is on now.
Well, like in every category, not all brands create products that are created equal. There's a difference between the stuff you might see on some online retailers versus the specialty equipment that the brands featured here in CMA provide. And Rostra certainly fits the bill when it comes to a brand that takes their product testing seriously. On today's CMA workshop, we're going to go beyond just specs and images. We have the specialist himself, Mr. Bill Simmons, in the studio with us. And on this workshop, we're going to dive deep into what makes the entire process of manufacturing for Rostra that much different. This is CMA Workshop presented by SiriusXM, Rostra, and it starts now. What's going on, everybody? And thanks for tuning in to this CMA Workshop presented by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Now, I made the statement that not all brands are created equal, and that, of course, is an obvious statement. But how many brands out there are going to go through and execute on some of the crazy testing techniques that we're going to learn about today? Not only testing, certifications, and just the entire method of production overall, especially when it comes to creating ADAS category products that are OE spec. Now, we've spent lots of time on this show talking about what does that mean, OE spec. I think we're going to really get an understanding of how far companies need to go and how much they need to invest as far as resources and testing to really meet some of these really highly elevated standards. All right, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guest on our show today. He represents Rostra. He's their marketing director for Vox Electronics, and his name is Bill Simmons. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Ben. Thank you for the introduction.
Well, hey, you're a big one to introduce because you carry a big brand on your shirt, Rostra.
Yes,
today, obviously, we are in for a treat because we're going to go a little bit deeper than just the catalog today, aren't we? Mm-hmm. Rostra has a rich history in manufacturing. We've spent time talking about it in the past. Really, we've grazed the surface. And it has a history in producing original equipment grade goods and products.
Yes, sir.
Why is this so important, that what we're doing today here in this workshop?
A big part of that, or probably the easiest answer to that, is that we want a lot of the customers that we work with day in and day out, both the dealers that sell our products as well as the installers that actually put them on their customers' vehicles, to know that the products that they're getting their hands on are oftentimes coming from the same manufacturing plant where Rostra designs and develops OEM products that we supply to the OE manufacturers.
Yeah, that's such an important statement right there, because, you heard right in the beginning, there are a lot of 12-volt electronics that are available on these, very well-known retailer sites that consumers can get their hands on at a very, very affordable price at times. And you got to scratch your head wondering, how could there be such a delta, right, between these two products that seem to do the same type of function, but certainly not at the same price? So we're going to investigate that. The other thing I want to talk about, ADAS, a driver assistance, it's about safety. When it comes to safety, guys, this is one of those categories you can't horse around, especially depending on the customer that you are dealing with. I mean, safety should be a top level priority at any level of customer that you're dealing with. But we're going to explore, the regular consumer, municipal customers, fleet, small business customers. These are all very important avenues of potential income and revenue for our 12-volt specialty stores. So how are we going to break that out as far as our workshop is going to go today, Bill?
Sure. So, you listed a lot of different categories there in terms of municipalities and general customers and fleet owners. And there's a lot of different levels of ADAS technology that get implemented into these vehicles. So, what I'm hoping to do as part of our discussion today is to talk about the testing that Rostra does for our products to make sure that they are in accordance in guidelines set out by the federal government, so that when customers actually purchase them and put them on their own cars or have installers put them on their own cars, they can know that their vehicles meet federal guidelines for safety.
Yeah, that is so important. Um, Well, without further ado, I think I'm done. Let me sit back and take notes. And once you're done your presentation, certainly we can discuss this at length and
Okay,
really connect the dots for the dealers why they need to pay attention today. So
absolutely.
you have the stage, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. So I'll go ahead and switch over to my presentation that I've put together today. And, the presentations that I usually do with you, Ben, this is usually the part where I start introducing cruise control systems from Rostra, as that's how most people know the Rostra brand name is through our cruise control systems. But we have a lot of different categories that we as a company have our hand in. And so what I'm hoping to talk a little bit more about today is some of the camera systems, some of the visibility systems that Rostra manufactures. And as part of that discussion, I want to talk about a lot of the testing, as you mentioned, that we do before we decide to actually release a product for sale to our customers that will hopefully give them a good overall view of the company once they get their hands on them. So with that said, some of the topics of discussion that I'm hoping to talk about today are the in-house environmental testing that we do at the manufacturing facilities that we have in North Carolina and in Florida. The testing-based enhancements that we build into our products based on some of the testing results that we get. I want to wrap up towards the end of the conversation talking about Fmvss 111 visibility testing that we do on our products. And then at the end of this, I want to show off some actual products that we have that benefit from all of this testing and how we kind of bulk them up to meet a good standard for the customers. So with that said, let's start off by first talking about some of the environmental testing that we do. And in this next part of the presentation, I'm hoping to show off some of the equipment that we use, describe how we use it, what it does, and how that benefits the product and you as the installer. So at Rostra's facilities in North Carolina, whenever we start our product testing, we always start by doing vibration testing. So we have machines here in the facility that we run 4 different tests on. The first test that we run is known as a fatigue test. This is a type of test that evaluates how well a product that you've installed on the vehicle is going to hold up to typical use. So let's say you've installed a camera on a car or truck or a monitor on a car or truck. As you're driving around daily use, as the camera system powers on and off, and as well as you get vibrations in the car and things like that as you drive around, this particular test right here is just going to see that all the components on the inside last. So it's a long-term test that we do just to make sure that the product is durable for daily use. The next test that we do is a shock and drop test, similar to the daily use test that we have, but we do tests where we actually shock the products as if a vehicle, just as an example, is hitting a heavy pothole. When it gets that shock through the system and up through the dashboard or up through the windshield, are the components on the system, inside the system, going to hold up to those shocks? Likewise, we do package testing where we take our products, we put them in packaging that we ship, that we normally use to ship the products out of our warehouse, and we run them on this machine, actually simulating what it's like for your product to travel through the Postal Service or FedEx or UPS or any of these other shippers, just to make sure that when it leaves our facility and it arrives to you on the other end, ready to install, that it's going to be in good condition when you get it out of the packaging. Likewise, the final test that we do is commonly referred to as a buzz, squeak, rattle test. As you can imagine, a lot of people that are getting Rostra products are installing them on brand new vehicles. And there's nothing more frustrating than getting a brand new, nice, quiet car. You install a product onto it, and that introduces some sort of a squeak or some sort of a rattle in a panel. So when we do our testing, we're also checking audible levels to make sure that the products that we sell to people are not introducing outside noises to the vehicle that weren't there before the product was actually installed. So that's the vibration testing. And next, I want to move into some of the more environmental testing that we do. And I want to show off this machine right here. We've got a couple of them in North Carolina. And what this is a thermal shock chamber. We put our products into this thermal shock chamber, which is designed to circulate air sorry, let me get my next slide here, which is designed to circulate air around the product, which can drop from all the way down to minus 40 degrees Celsius, all the way up to 125 degrees Celsius, just to make sure that the products themselves are going to hold up to some of the temperature extremes, both in terms of storage when the vehicle is sitting still and operating when the vehicle is powered on and moving around, just to make sure that they're going to hold up to some of those weather extremes that you might see, for example, in the southwestern United States, or in your area in some of the provinces of Canada where it gets very cold. So that is the thermal shock chamber that we use, just to make sure that the products are going to hold up to large temperature fluctuations. And the next test we do, probably one of the most important with the winter season coming up, is actually putting them through a salt fog chamber. The salt fog chamber that we have uses a fine mist of water fog, and a mixture of salt as well, to kind of simulate that salt spray that you might get on a vehicle as it's driving down the road during the winter time. When salt has been put out, it's creating a slush on the road, and that's creating a fine mist that goes all over the car, the undercarriage, and everything that you've got installed on the outside of the vehicle, such as a camera. So we use this to check harnesses and connectors and the bodies of cameras, basically anything that's going to be exposed to the exterior of the vehicle while it's in motion. And the whole idea is just to make sure that we're not seeing corrosion buildup or products going defective because they're allowing any of this salt fog or this mist or this humidity to get into the casing or into any of the connectors. So what does that mean for the customers? One thing that we like to brag a lot about is the quality control testing that we do. And at Rostra, by way of our parent company, Vox, we have the ISO certifications, which check for quality manufacturing and a quality manufacturing environment, as well as IATF certifications. So going back to the original point that you made, Ben, a lot of these certifications that we put ourselves through third-party testing by having people come into our manufacturing plant and certify that we've got a good quality manufacturing process are seen in these certifications. So customers buying products from us can know that we as a company have voluntarily put ourselves through these certifications multiple times per year, just to make sure and keep ourselves honest, if you will, that we have a good quality product coming off the manufacturing line. So outside of some of these certifications, I want to first start by talking about traditional visibility and camera systems on cars. And then I want to talk a little bit further about the enhancements that Rostra has made to our products over the years based on a lot of this testing that I've talked about. So what you have on the screen in front of you right now is kind of a traditional backup camera. This one is just a camera that Rostra used to offer. It's a square body camera. It's got a hinge mount, which makes it pretty much universal and allows you to install it on the back of just about any vehicle, whether it's an SUV or a car or a truck, what have you. But the connectors on this camera are kind of a weak spot for them. If you look on the left-hand side of this screen, you'll see a yellow composite RCA video type cable. And then you'll see a red friction fit DC power input cable that don't give you a lot of good weatherproofing when it's installed on the vehicle. So also packaged in the camera system itself would be a harness like this, where you connect your RCA plugs at the camera, connect your RCA plug all the way up at the video source, whether it be an aftermarket head unit or a monitor of some sort. And then in the box, you'll also have, again, a friction fit DC power harness with a couple of red bare wires hanging off of them. And I mention all of these things to say that this type of camera system is something that's relatively okay to use on most of the cars that you'll find out there in the market, whether, again, it's a sedan or an SUV, because most of these connections that you're making on these cameras actually take place inside the vehicle. So they're not exposed to the weather. They're not exposed to the environment outside of the car. But what happens as an installer, if you've got a heavy duty or a fleet customer that comes to you, they want to install camera systems, as an example, on any one of the vehicles that you see in the picture here now. Top left-hand corner, you've got a vehicle that's got an aftermarket service body on the back. Bottom left-hand corner, you've got a truck with a flatbed. Right-hand side of this screen, you've got a cab forward vehicle that's got a box body on the back. All of these trucks, all of these vehicles that you see in front of you don't have a body, if you will, on the back of the vehicle through which to run your cables. So invariably, on a truck like any of these that you see in the picture, you're going to have to make a connection of some sort outside of the vehicle. Now, The problem with a camera system like this, of course, is you've got those RCA cables, you've got that DC power cable completely exposed to the elements that are on the outside. So I want to shift gears here and move away from some of these other cameras and talk a little bit about Rostra's heavy duty cameras that we have. The two that you have on the screen right now in front of you are kind of stereotypical heavy duty cameras that you'd see on the back of a vehicle. The one on the left, I'm in front of the number there, but that's 250-8149. And the one on the right is the 250-8150. These are universal cameras which can mount to the any flat surface on the back of a vehicle. They can rotate up and down to change the angle for the driver so they can get the best visibility. But before I get into Rostra's cameras and why we think they're such good quality, I want to talk about the cameras that are offered by kind of the other brand, the other companies that are out there. The one that you see in front of you on the camera right now, or on the screen right now, looks very similar to the few that I just showed a couple of slides ago. Universal camera, it's got a hinge mount, it rotates up and down. Problem that you have with a lot of cameras from other suppliers out there are the connection points where the camera connects to an extension harness that goes to the front of the truck. And in this instance, we're looking at a camera that actually has a 6-pin S video cable. Now, realistically, is there anything wrong with an S video cable? And the short answer to that is if you're doing a home entertainment system in the mid-1990s, no, you're probably going to use S video cable for stuff. But the problem that you have with S video cables is they are a friction fit cable. One end pushes into the other, and there's no weatherproofing to be had whatsoever in the cable itself. Now, you'll see in this picture that the camera itself just has a small pigtail harness hanging off the back. To get that wire all the way up to the front of the vehicle, what would also be packaged in the kit would probably be something like this. Something in the range of 30 feet or so. It's another male S-video cable with a female S-video cable. And then when you get to the front of the truck, one thing you have to start thinking about, how am I going to connect this S-video cable to the monitor that I have in the front of the truck? If it's an aftermarket radio, it's not going to have an S-video input. If it's a monitor from Rostra or any other company, it's probably not going to have an S-video input. So what you'll oftentimes find packaged in these kits as well is an adapter harness that looks like this one that's on the screen right now. It takes that S-video cable, that poor connection S-video cable, and converts the signal over to your yellow RCA cable there for your video, your white RCA cable for your audio if the camera's got audio capability, and then you've got just a couple of bare wires there to give the camera its power and ground connections. Now, again, kind of like I mentioned on the slide where I showed off the pictures of those heavy-duty trucks, eventually you're going to have a connection that's going to be on the outside of the vehicle. And if you're just using some sort of friction fit connector like an S-video plug where two ends just snap into one another, you're not going to have the weatherproofing that you need to actually make that camera system last. What the supplier might have done for you, though, is packaged in the box for you something that looks like what you have on the screen right now, which would be something like a heavy vinyl tape or possibly an electrical tape. And the problem that you have with those is that they are unfortunately not watertight connections. The tape itself usually breaks down pretty quickly when it's exposed to the elements, and that eventually leaves your actual connector that's on the outside of the vehicle exposed to the elements as well. The problem you run into when you use a method like this to try and weather seal your connections is you get corrosion, possible short circuiting of the product, and because you've connected to the electrical system of the vehicle, there's also possible electrical damage to the vehicle too. So those are things that you have to think about when you're installing these products. Is something like a vinyl tape or an electrical tape going to be good enough to make your connections to give the camera system longevity for the customer? Now, what I want to do is talk about a little better way of doing camera systems by way of a camera like you have on the screen right here. This is the 250-8150 that I mentioned a few slides back. What Rostra has done over the years, we've worked really hard to commonize all of our connectors over to a 4-pin aviation style connector like the one that you see on the screen. Now, what makes an aviation style connector like this better than the alternative? First and foremost, these types of connectors have very heavy internal pins. If you've ever misaligned something like an S-video cable and pushed it together with whatever you were connecting to, you know how easy it is to actually bend those pins and render the cable completely useless once you've done that. So heavy-duty pins on these aviation style connectors mean there's practically no chance of you doing that without a ton of force. The connectors themselves are keyed. A little red dot that I have down there shows you, let's see if I can point to it there. Little red dot there shows you a little keyhole that's actually in the harness that gives you proper alignment whenever you're connecting one harness to another. The system itself, the harnesses themselves actually have an O-ring that's built in right here to the connector. Gives you good weatherproofing right out of the box. The connector itself is actually a thread together connector. So the other end of this connector, an extension harness or a monitor that you'd be connecting it to, these connectors actually have thread built into them. So instead of just pushing them together, you're pushing them together and then you're tightening down those connections using a threaded mechanism. And then right there on the right-hand side, if you can see my orange dot, once you make your connections for a camera like this, there's a rubber sleeve that completely comes over top of that connector for extra weatherproofing. Now, as a company, we could have probably stopped there and given customers a good connection. But one thing that's included with all of the camera systems that we sell is actually a nice packet of dielectric grease that the installer can use to coat the pins on the connector to make sure that if any moisture does get in on the inside, that the dielectric grease is going to keep any corrosion whatsoever from building up. So again, that's what one of our heavy duty cameras looks like once it's installed. Again, the camera itself has just a pigtail hanging off the back of it. So one thing you have to consider, much like with the other brand's camera, you have to consider how you're going to get that video feed up to the front of the truck. And in this case, Rostra sells quite a number of different extension harnesses, ranging from about 5 feet all the way up to about 66 feet, almost 70 feet lengths, which have these same thread together connectors. So you get all the same benefits when you make that connection at the back of the truck. Heavy duty pins, keyed connector, built-in O-ring, threaded together connection, and of course the rubber sleeve, which goes over top once you've applied your dielectric grease, goes over top to actually keep that kit completely sealed. Now, again, this is a connector that's got a four-pin plug. A lot of monitors out there don't have 4-pin plugs, but Rostra, of course, is a different story. We've worked really hard to actually make sure that all of the monitors that we offer these days have a 4-pin plug where that harness can directly thread into the back of the monitor. Now, you might be saying, what am I going to do about powering the camera? The other camera kit came with a harness that looked like this that actually had a red and a black wire that allowed me to power the camera. Well, the nice thing about Rostra monitors is they take all of the heavy duty lifting out of that, and they will actually power the camera for you directly off the monitor. So there's no need to actually run extra lengths of wire all the way to the back of the truck just to power it. All you got to do is give the monitor power, and it takes care of everything else. So it's, from an installer's perspective, it's much less work. Now, what if the installer isn't using a Rostra monitor? There's situations where maybe a vehicle's got a camera system on it already, and you need to replace the camera because it's going bad, but the monitor is still in good shape. Well, there's a lot of different options for you in terms of adapters that are available from Rostra. As a quick example, something like this would be a 4-pin to RCA converter plug that we offer with our camera kits. It connects to that 4-pin plug, and then it gives you the standard composite video outputs that a lot of monitors will use. Likewise, if somebody's got a monitor offering from a competitor, we do offer harnesses that will allow you to convert, if you can see my red circles there, that will allow you to convert from a 5-pin harness over to the 4-pin harness, and vice versa. So we can take the 4-pin harness that's on a camera, connect it to a monitor with a 5-pin harness, or a 5-pin harness on a camera, convert it to a 4-pin harness that a Rostra monitor might use. So we make it very easy for installers to go back and forth between different brands if they need to, and if they need to actually replace equipment. So talking about some of those adapters, let's change gears just a little bit. And I want to talk just briefly about the Fmvss 111 testing that we do here in-house, what it means, and Rostra's compliance with the standards. So for those watching that are not familiar, Fmvss and Cmvss are federal regulations that were put in place a few years ago in 2018 that basically mandate that a wide variety of vehicles weighing under 10,000 pounds gross vehicle weight must be equipped with a rear display camera system. Now, the regulations themselves are designed to reduce fatalities caused by backovers and accidents that occur because of low visibility at the back of vehicles. So What does Rostra do? Rostra takes the wide variety of cameras that we manufacture and we test them against these federal regulations, the guidelines set out in these federal regulations at different heights on the back of different vehicles. Now, the test that you do has you align your vehicle with a checkerboard pattern, basically a mat that goes down on the ground. It's 10 feet by 20 feet. You have large pylons that line the side and the back of the mat. And the idea behind this is what you're checking is with the camera, as you move it from one height to another, can it see the entirety of this checkerboard and the pylons that are on the ground behind the vehicle? So we take all of our cameras, we put all of our cameras through this testing, and we make public the fact that we've put our cameras through this testing, and we put all of our part numbers on our website. We talk about whether or not it meets the Fmvss 111 visibility standard and with the reliability standards set out by the Department of Transportation. That, of course, comes from all the environmental testing that I mentioned at the very beginning of this. We then take that information and we publicly put on our website a certification that customers can download and share with their customers if they're installing it for somebody, showing that the products actually do meet the DOT reliability standards as well as the Fmvss 111 visibility standards. Now, what does this mean for the installer? On the installer end of things, they can rest easy buying a Rostra product, knowing that they're getting something that's quality, that holds up to environmental abuse, and in the end, results in less of there being a chance for a vehicle to come back to them needing repairs along the way because something has gone bad. So all of this effort that we put in on the front end makes sure that the installer on the back end knows that if they install a Rostra product, that truck or car is not coming back for repairs. But what does this mean for the installer's customer? Again, Rostra has tested all of this equipment to mean that it meets the federal guidelines for driver and pedestrian safety. And what I always throw in there is for these fleet owners to think about their insurance. Think about the insurance issues that you might have if you've installed a camera system from some other brand that does not meet these Fmvss 111 federal guidelines and your driver has hit somebody or hit another vehicle while backing up. And then at the same time, similar to the installer, the fleet owner is not going to have to bring their vehicle back for repairs on a regular basis because we've again done all the front end work to make sure that it's a quality product and your vehicle won't be sitting still. It needs to be out there working to make money, so it's not going to be having downtime with products being repaired. So let's talk about some of the actual products that we offer that actually implement a little bit more of this technology. First and foremost, 250-8185. This is a relatively new camera that Rostra sells. It's a multi-mount camera. It swivels up and down and left and right and spins in its housing 360 degrees. But this is designed for a much heavier truck, which might have a mirror on the outside, kind of like you see over on the right. This camera can adapt to the bars on these mirrors. It can clamp into place. It can be angled in a wide variety of directions just to give you a good view off to the side of the vehicle. So we oftentimes, with the visibility category, we talk about backup camera technology, but nowadays, of course, we have to start thinking about side view camera technology as well as forward-facing camera technology. This camera that you see on the screen right here, 250-8098. This is a stainless steel hinge mount camera that we carry. Stainless steel, so it's going to really hold up to the exterior environment. It's got an infrared LED array built into it, so it gives you more or less night vision in low light settings. And of course, it's got a manually adjustable lens cover. So if you're to use a camera like this on the front of the vehicle, when the camera's not in use, you can actually rotate that cover down to actually protect the lens and the LED array that's built into it. Beyond that, I'll circle back to the 250-8149. This, of course, a universal hinge mount camera. It's got the infrared LED array. It's got the manually adjustable lens cover. This camera is unique because it's also got a microphone built into it. So if you have one of the Rostra monitors that's got speakers built into it and can accept an audio input, the driver in the vehicle can actually hear if somebody's back behind them giving them directions or has something to say to them. They can hear it in the cab, even if they're 40 and 50 feet away with some of these giant trucks. Now, the next product that I want to talk about is one of my favorites, also a relatively new offering for Rostra. These are LED work lamps that we offer that actually have a camera built into the center of them. So you might see on some heavy trucks and even on some light duty trucks, people using LED lights like these on the back or for ditch lights on the front and things like that. But the neat thing that Rostra has done is actually taken one of these work lights and we've built a color camera into the middle of it. So you kind of get two products in one. If you want an LED light for extra illumination, you've got the LED light. If you want the camera for your extra visibility back behind you, you've got the camera. And of course, you can use both at the same time. So if you're in a low light situation, you can power on the LED light, turn the camera on, perfect view of what's back there because you've got a ton of light flooding out of this camera itself. So right there is kind of what it looks like when it's illuminated. You've got 8 LEDs, 8 high power LEDs built into both of these lamps. And before I finish up my presentation here, I would be remiss if I did not remind everybody that seat heater season is in full swing here in October. It's starting to get a little bit cold as you move further north. I wanted to remind everybody that Rostra has a huge category of seat heaters and lumbar support systems that we sell that will allow you to add these creature comforts to your customers' vehicles as well. And keeping in mind the Fmvss testing that I spoke about earlier, Rostra also takes its seat heaters and its lumbar supports and it submits them to what's known as Fmvss 302 testing. Fmvss 302 is a flammability test. A lot of materials that are used on vehicles these days on the interiors, headliners, seat covers, carpet, things like that, go through this same type of testing just to make sure that if there is an issue with a fire or something like that, the vehicle driver and passengers have time to get out. So I just wanted to mention that we do take our seat heaters. Again, Ben, like you mentioned earlier, you can pick up seat heaters from just about anywhere in the world nowadays. But Rostra takes its seat heaters, it submits them to this Fmvss 302 flammability testing through a third party. And again, that information is available for customers and for installers to look at, or for the installers to share with their customers as well, just to let them know that they're getting a quality product that has been through testing that's put in place by the federal government, and they have a nice, safe product that they can actually install on the car. So with that said, I just want to open this up to any questions or comments that you might have, Ben, or anybody else that maybe is watching us live today.
Well, you know I'm going to have questions, so it's a
Sure.
little bit of a redundant question. But
Right.
First of all, brilliant presentation, Bill. Thank you so much for putting that together. And
Thank you.
I have to say, I'm quite impressed, is the only word I can use, when it comes to the level of commitment that Rostra is demonstrating here in this presentation,
Sure.
that goes into the testing of these products. A lot of the times we take for granted the fact that, you know, we play with vehicles, and vehicles safety is such an important concern. You know, of course, there's the fun stuff that we do, you know, the car audio and the lighting and stuff. But there's this whole other side of necessary equipment that Rostra speaks to, and safety. It's tied directly to the type of testing and the certifications that you have. Now, the first thing I want to kind of expand on, if you don't mind, Bill, you know, you had a slide up there talking about what does this testing mean to the installer and what does it mean to the installer's consumer. I want to take that a step further and look at that in a real-time scenario. If you're a dealer and ADAS has been something that's been steadily growing in your business, or maybe it's something that you're like, yeah, you know what, I should start looking into it. There's a lot of great options and a need out there in the marketplace. Is it necessarily your car stereo customer? Maybe in some circumstances, if you're looking at a dash cam or increasing, you know, maybe a better camera system for their pickup truck, absolutely. Tons of great options there. If you're looking at it as you're the 12-volt specialty retailer in your region, and here you are maybe working with the municipal side of things, maybe you're working with small businesses, small fleets, you need to level up your game by being the specialist and being the expert in knowing facts like what you just presented today, Bill. Because if I'm store A and I'm competing against store B on a quote for, let's say, a municipal job, maybe they have, like up here, maybe they have 14 you know, heavy duty vehicles and they need camera systems installed or some sensors, right? Great. If I'm store A competing against store B and store B is coming in cheaper because they've got no name product, they want to get in because they think price is where it's at, and I'm coming in with Rostra, and then in my presentation to them explaining exactly why we chose this product, because of these certifications, this is what you need. From a municipal standpoint and a business fleet standpoint, man, that is a clear winner. What do you think of that? That's what I think.
Absolutely, yeah. Just like the OE manufacturers require this type of validation testing and quality compliance testing that Rostra and Vox do through these third parties, municipalities want to see that information too. So this gives you, as you mentioned, the ability to actually walk into your presentation and with your quote of having that information in hand, ready to go. And again, all of that's on Rostra's website. It's not something that you have to dig terribly to find. And if you can't find it from somebody, there's a reason.
There's a
Typically
reason
that
why
you
you can't find it.
there's a reason you can't find it. But yeah, we want it to be publicly available out there, that we're doing all of this testing to make sure that the product is going to be quality. Just like fleet owners, municipalities can't have buses going down on a regular basis just because their camera systems are not working. So you get to go in and you get to say, here's all the quality that goes into this product. This is why you should buy from us.
So absolutely. So that's on paper. Then there's the physical aspects I want to speak to. Like, your weatherproof connectors for camera systems, they're as heavy duty as it gets. And if you're talking, in Canada, or you're in a heavy duty situation, these are the type of things you need to show the customer physically. It's not good enough to show them a picture of it.
Yes.
You showed a regular camera and how that connects. Well, if you bring that out to a customer and you explain to them these are the differences, it speaks for itself. And that's another layer to this conversation.
Yeah, and with some of these connectors, Ben, if you noticed, I was referring to them as aviation connectors, and there's a reason for that.
Curious
And that's
about that.
because these are connectors that are oftentimes used in aviation applications. We're talking about products that are driving around on the street. Can you imagine a bad connection on an airplane, for example? So you're able to walk into the customer or whatever sort of business you're quoting and tell them they're getting, the same quality of product that goes into other modes of transportation that require the utmost safety.
I'm sorry, Bill. Good enough for a plane, good
Yeah,
enough for these vehicles.
I would hope so.
I'm just saying. And lastly, you touched on another key point that I want to have a little bit more discussion on, and that is liability. I don't think you use the word liability. I'm using the word liability.
Okay.
But really, you're putting your name on a quote on a job in a safety situation. Man, you better make sure that the companies and the brands that you are putting on that can back you as much as possible.
Yes.
Because you're right. You brought up a great point. Equipment failure, insurance is going to get involved. Yeah, and if they find out that there is a piece of equipment that did not meet a certain certification or was not appropriate for said function, well, if I know insurance companies, they're going to go as deep as they can to not pay.
Yeah, and we've spoken about this in previous CMA broadcasts that we've done with Rostra's tailgate camera relocation systems that we have. So you'll have a situation where somebody maybe needs to remove the tailgate or the bed of a truck, in essence losing the factory backup camera at the same time. Now, these factory backup cameras, of course, have been tested to fit this Fmvss 111 visibility standard. They have to, or otherwise these manufacturers would not put them on the back of vehicles. And so if number one, if you're removing that camera altogether and not replacing it, that opens you up to a lot of liability as a fleet owner. And then even if you are replacing it, but you're using the one that you got off of the Amazon or eBay or what have you of the world, and it's not meeting that Fmvss 111 compliance, and you do say back into a person or back into a vehicle because you've reduced the view at the back of the car from what it was from the factory, then as you mentioned, that opens you up as a fleet owner to a lot of liability issues.
Liability, very, very big deal when it comes to this type of equipment or installation for any type of vehicle. So if you're serious about getting into ADAS and this type of stuff, you need to be serious about the products that you're putting in. That's the message here.
Yes.
I had a question. Now, you were obviously some pretty cool equipment that you guys have invested in as far as testing. They're pretty hardcore. Can we expect this level of testing throughout all the products, or how does that work?
That's the idea. When Rostra decides to actually release a product to our customers for sale, there's no situation in which it skips this product testing. Just to give you some numbers behind this product testing as well, I talked about the thermal shock chamber. I talked about the vibration system that we use. I talked about the salt fog system that we use. You as the customer also need to know that all of these products go through a mandatory 1,000 hours of testing. So we're talking about more than a month worth of time in which they need to operate inside of these machines before we'll ever even think of actually releasing it to the public. So that's just another number to put on the top there that shows how in depth we do the testing on these, just to make sure that they're going to be reliable and that they're going to hold up on the vehicle that the installer is putting them on.
And to be clear, this testing is not just for products that happen to be made in-house, third-party testing,
Yes.
supplier, like everything that has the brand name on it.
Yes, if there is a product that we are importing and we're going to sell it under the Rostra brand name, it goes through this testing. And if it fails, it doesn't get released. We're just not going to sell it.
You've answered every one of my questions brilliantly. There's no question in my mind, unless another brand can come to CMA here and prove me otherwise. This is some of the most hardcore testing I've seen on any brand in our industry so far. So I want to definitely point that out. If you're looking for more information on Rostra products, and as Bill mentioned, every piece of information certification is all available. Check out their website. It's rostra.com. Everything is, well, I think you make it a point to make it available. I think that's the whole the whole thing right there. If you happen to be a Canadian dealer, you got to get a hold of their partners up in Canada. It's gemsend.com. They'll connect you with all the products, anything Vox, and in this case, Rostra as well. Bill, I want to thank you so much for putting this one together. Very educational, for this workshop. I think if dealers can take the time and they want to take this category seriously, then they need to understand not only the different aspects that are important to the business, but also the brands that take it to that next level to ensure their success within this category. So thank you so much.
One last thing, if I can, Ben, Rostra, of course, will be at the SEMA show in the Vox Electronics booth in the North Hall of the Las Vegas Convention Center in about 4 weeks' time. So a lot of this heavy-duty products that I've talked about here today will actually be on display there. So
never mind that. Are you going to be there?
I am not going to be there, but the products will be, and the products are the most important. So
that's good. So they'll be able to touch and feel and play with them and everything.
All you like, see the connectors, see the video inputs, all that good stuff. We will be there at the North Hall of Las Vegas Convention Center.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming in today, Bill.
Thanks, Ben.
Take care.
You too.
All right. If you're interested in more information on this whole ADAS theme, well, you're in luck because we are deep into the ADAS sessions and we're going right through till October 13th, each and every day, featuring a new brand in the category for advanced driver assisted systems. Big contest. If you haven't heard, I'm going to keep on talking about it. That's right. It's called the Ultimate Fab Experience Giveaway. We've partnered up with SiriusXM, 5-Axis Innovations, and of course, MasterTech Expo. Head over to cmanetworks.com/giveaway to sign up. It's absolutely free. One winner from Canada, one winner from US, a complete package deal, flights, food, hotel, the whole nine to MasterTech Expo next spring. Now, while you're on the website, make sure to check out all other great videos that we've done with Vox Electronics as well as with Rostra, or check out my man, Bill Simmons. He's got his own profile under trainers, cmanetworks.com. It's where the 12-volt industry connects. This has been an awesome CMA workshop presented by SiriusXM. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Until next time, we connect.
I mean, yeah, that's how I'm going today where I'm going to go.
Roll it down.
I am.
You don't need a car to listen to SiriusXM. You can listen anywhere. You know that, right?
What? Kevin Hart's Laugh Out Loud Radio.
Kevin, you could use your phone.
What? What?
Alexa, play Kevin Hart's Laugh Out Loud Radio on SiriusXM.
What?
This is how I know you're getting old. I guess that was it.
What?